I walked down and I saw my mom and the neighbors in the house, and I'm like, what is going on? Like, I knew Andy was hurt. I knew my mom was in distress and she was crying.
Welcome back, and thanks for being here. Now, a toxic relationship is never going to get better without some sort of intervention. But there are also times where these relationships are just beyond fixing, especially when both people are aggressive and violent towards one another. It seems like that's exactly the type of relationship the two people in today's case had. And one day in May of 2014, it came to a sudden and bloody end. One day in 2009, 26-year-old Andrew Wagner walked into the Mardi Gras strip club located in Springfield, Massachusetts. And when he did, he noticed a beautiful dancer whom he was instantly attracted to. Her name was Stephanie Fernandes, and the pair would end up exchanging phone numbers. Not long after that, Andrew and Stephanie began dating, and only a month later, they moved into an apartment together in Worcester, Massachusetts. Stephanie had fallen in love with Andrew's blue eyes, his smile, and his fun personality. She, like him, had felt an instant attraction. At the time they began dating, Andrew was actually working at a tire shop located inside a Costco. But he had always dreamed of working in law enforcement, and in October of 2013, he would obtain a job as a corrections officer at a jail located in Connecticut, which is about an hour away from where Stephanie and he lived in Worcester. So Stephanie also had a daughter from her previous relationship. Her name was Angelina, and she was only 6 years old when Andrew Wagner first came into her life. Angelina said that much of the time, the family was a happy one. The trio would watch TV shows together at night on the couch, and the three would also go on family vacations every year to Cape Cod. After being together for 5 years, Andrew and Stephanie got engaged in 2013, and they were planning on getting married in August of 2014. Also, shortly after their engagement in January of 2014, the couple moved to their new place, which was a townhome located on 25 Angelo Street in Worcester. And only a few months after that, on May 7th, 2014, around 11 p.m., a 911 call was received regarding a domestic dispute at their address. When police officers arrived on the scene, they found that Andrew had been stabbed and he was barely breathing. He was lying covered in blood on the linoleum floor between the bathroom and the kitchen, and one of his neighbors was attempting to treat Andrew's wound. This neighbor, who was a former medical emergency technician, lived in the other half of the duplex, and when he had heard Stephanie screaming for help, he had come running. But regardless of this neighbor's and first responders' efforts, Andrew would not survive. He was rushed to UMass Memorial Medical Center, University campus, where he was declared dead. Completely distressed and covered in blood, Stephanie was taken into custody for the attack on Andrew just moments after police's arrival. At the police station, Stephanie was interrogated for 3 hours before she was finally told that her fiancé Andrew didn't make it. And this was even though she had begged for any updates on his condition throughout the entire interview.
Okay. No, please tell me anything.
Okay.
Oh, please tell me anything. I can't even talk. Like, he's my life. It doesn't even matter. Like, I love him so much in her. No. I don't know what to do. Like, I'm gonna freak out. Like, no.
Sit down for a Stephanie.
I don't want to hear nothing. And if anything bad happened to my family, no, please don't tell me. I know I look psycho. Please.
Well, something did happen. You're covered in blood.
No. Oh, yeah.
Well, you have a lot of blood on you. And that's, I would assume that's Andrew's blood?
Yes, this is Andrew's blood.
But it was only after hearing that he didn't make it that Stephanie finally admitted to police that she had stabbed Andy. But she insisted that she had only done so in self-defense.
What happened was we got into an altercation and he was hitting me. And that's what happened. And he pulled out a knife and he started like choking me and hitting me and stuff.
Stephanie told police that she had made dinner, then later put 11-year-old Angelina to bed. Following that, she claimed that Andrew started an argument with her regarding what she had been up to while he was away at work that week. Since Andrew worked so far away, he would often stay closer to his job during the week and then return back to Worcester with Stephanie during the weekends. And now he was accusing Stephanie of cheating on him while he'd been gone. This was partially due to her track record of being unfaithful to Andy throughout their 5-year relationship. She said their argument quickly turned physical, and Andy pinned her down to the couch, with clear intentions to choke her. The pair struggled and somehow ended up on the floor. However, Stephanie claimed that she managed to get away and run into the kitchen where she grabbed a sharp knife in order to defend herself if he should come after her. After Stephanie grabbed the knife, Andy came into the room, and he looked like he was going to come towards her, so she began screaming at him, "Don't come near me, don't come near me." At the same time, Andy was screaming back at her, "Give me the knife, you fucking bitch. I'll kill you. I'm gonna kill you, you bitch." Then Andy went in to headbutt her, but as soon as he did, he pulled away and he was dripping blood from his shoulder. He then said to her, "Steph, I think I got stabbed." Stephanie told police that she stood there in complete shock for a moment, before she then went looking for her cell phone, and when she couldn't find it, she started screaming for help. And this whole time, Stephanie's 11-year-old daughter, Angelina, had been upstairs in her bedroom. She had come out of her room when she heard her mother screaming, only to see blood all over the floor. Luckily, as soon as the first responders arrived, which was not long after, they whisked her off to her grandparents' house. When police had interviewed Stephanie the night Andy died, she actually had fresh bruises on her body. Many were on her arms and face, supporting what she said about Andy attacking her. However, Stephanie would end up being arraigned on a manslaughter charge. Additional counts of murder and assault with a deadly weapon were later added after new evidence came to light. Stephanie and Andrew were definitely not good for one another. Their relationship had been extremely toxic. And officials found out that Stephanie had some serious anger issues. In fact, at one point she had told an ex-boyfriend that she had such bad anger issues that she might actually murder somebody one day. The other thing that was not making Stephanie look very good in this case was the fact that this was not the first time she had stabbed a live-in fiancé. Yeah, seriously. There had actually been another extraordinarily similar yet non-fatal incident sometime prior to Andy being stabbed. Though Stephanie says that this was also just an accident and had stemmed from issues in their relationship. Especially since, according to Stephanie, this boyfriend, who was named Mike Laramie, had a dark side unlike any other. So Stephanie had pulled a knife out on this ex while they were at their home. Luckily, he had been able to hit it out of her hand. But then there was another incident where Stephanie had gone walking towards Mike, holding a knife. Mike had grabbed one of the dining room chairs to protect himself, and Stephanie ended up stabbing the chair 3 to 4 times. Now, Andrew was far from perfect too. He was very controlling of everything Stephanie did. In fact, his text messages over the years show him attempting to manipulate her into doing things that he deemed to be fit. He also allegedly referred to himself as Commander-in-Chief and wouldn't let her go many places without him. Stephanie's ex-coworker from the strip club, Danielle, said that a lot of red flags went off for her when Stephanie and Andy first met. Almost right away, she said that Andy was completely possessive of her. He was constantly calling and texting Stephanie. He would also show up at the club many nights. This coworker also said that Stephanie began to show up at work with marks on her arms like she had been grabbed. She had also shown up a few times with marks on the insides of her legs, which she tried to cover up with makeup. Not long after they had moved in together, Andrew had deemed that Stephanie was no longer going to strip, saying that his girl was not going to dance at some club. She ended up giving in to his demands and quitting, but Stephanie said that did not make Andy's violence stop. The thing is, Stephanie never called to report any of it, which is understandable as a lot of battered women don't for the same reasons that Stephanie didn't. She said that calling the authorities wouldn't mean anything because even with a restraining order, he could get to her quicker than the cops could. So she believed that if she ever called the police or left him, she would die. The thing that had started off the controlling behavior in Andy, Stephanie believed to be jealousy. Andy would get very upset when she wore outfits that attracted other men. Stephanie recalled one time where Andy went off over a tank top that she was wearing. She claimed that he grabbed her, threw her on the bed, and tore it off of her. Stephanie said that Andy had then taken his gun, making sure she knew it was loaded with bullets, and jammed it down her throat. Stephanie's daughter Angelina also backed up her mother's claims, saying that Andy had a violent streak. She said that when Andy was mad, he turned into a completely different person. His face would get red, his pupils would dilate, and it was like a possession of a demonic entity, Angelina claimed. But Stephanie also admitted that the jealousy was not just Andy's own doing. Sometimes she would antagonize and torment him, often via text. One of these text messages that Stephanie sent to Andy said, "I'm gonna F your best friend." In another, she tells him she hopes a car would fall on him. So with their toxic relationship not getting any better, in 2013, Stephanie decided that she and her daughter needed a change. So she left Andy and began a relationship with her ex-boyfriend, Mike. I'm assuming that Stephanie tried to stab Mike after this and not previous to, because if so, why did he go back to her? But Stephanie would eventually decide that she wanted the best of both worlds, and she would get back with Andy as well. This arrangement worked well for Stephanie too. Since Andy was away at work during the week, she would stay with Mike. And then when Andy was home, on the weekends, she would stay with him. Stephanie said that Mike treated her well and spoiled her in every way. And just months after they had gotten together, Mike proposed to Stephanie while they were at Niagara Falls. The ring he gave to her was reportedly worth $44,000. And Stephanie said yes, but she was still engaged to Andy at the time. She, however, insists that the two knew about each other, but she would still slip on and off her ring depending on who she was with at the time. But only a month after they got engaged, Mike would break off the engagement, and Stephanie would get back together with Andy full-time. Stephanie claimed that the reason she had gotten back together with Andy was more out of fear than out of love. She said that she feared Andy would have killed her and Mike if she didn't go back to him. And unfortunately, it wasn't long until the couple's dysfunctional cycle resumed. There had actually been a text message that Andy sent to Stephanie 3 days prior to his death, and in it he said, "I'm gonna fucking kill you." Stephanie claimed this was something he said to her on a frequent basis. On the other hand, Andrew Wagner's family was claiming that Stephanie was the one who was violent towards Andy, and she was nothing but a murderer. Andrew's mother, Melissa Wagner, claimed that Stephanie had taken away her son's joy of life by emotionally beating him down in the relationship. Melissa also claimed that Stephanie had taken advantage of Andy, lived off his money, and isolated him from family and friends. Michael Orr, who was a close friend of Andy's, said that his once outgoing and fun friend had become a lot more withdrawn since he had started dating Stephanie. Michael said that Andy had even missed his wedding and bachelor party. Another of Andy's friends would also later testify that he had seen Stephanie hit Andy in the back of the head in 2010 with a closed fist. He said he had seen her hit him on other occasions as well. And Andy's father, Tom Wagner, would say that his son would go long stretches of time without speaking to him. And that's because Stephanie didn't want them to speak. Tom said that the last time he had seen his son was a chance encounter 2 days before his wife's birthday. He had asked Andy to give his mother a call, but Andy did not. And his father claims that his son's last words to him were, "If you see Stephanie, please don't mention that we saw each other." On top of all these claims against her, Stephanie also had a criminal record, which included a juvenile record of assaults against her own mother. Stephanie had also been arrested in 2006 for breaking into her then-boyfriend's home in Leicester, Massachusetts. And just a few years prior to Andrew getting stabbed, Stephanie had pulled off door handles and smashed the windshield of an SUV that was carrying 5 children over a parking lot incident. This was also in front of her own young daughter. Stephanie had actually just finished probation and anger management at the time that Andy was killed, ironically. Stephanie Fernandes was indicted for Andrew's murder in 2015. But while awaiting trial, she would also be charged with intimidating a witness after she had allegedly threatened a friend of Andy's. Suddenly, however, in 2017, the murder charge against her was dismissed. But it would be reinstated in 2019 by the state's highest court. Stephanie's trial had been delayed due to this as well as the COVID pandemic. But it would finally start in June of 2022. And Stephanie had actually spent most of her time awaiting the trial at home on a GPS ankle monitor. She had even been allowed to attend her daughter's events and her own college classes in person. Stephanie's defense was claiming that their client had only killed Andrew Wagner that night in self-defense. She had to protect herself from getting killed, they claimed. But Stephanie had described a struggle around the couch that night. However, the assistant DA said that none of the crime scene photos showed any sign of that. Also, her claims of being afraid of Andy were called into question, since Stephanie was found to be just as verbally and sometimes physically aggressive towards him. Then, the medical examiner's report from Andy's autopsy showed that the knife had gone in from the front, angled downwards. It was also determined that Stephanie had used a stabbing motion, which ruled out her claims of self-defense. So Stephanie would end up being found guilty, but not on her original charge, on a lesser charge of manslaughter. Then, in October of that year, she was sentenced to 8 to 10 years in prison and will be eligible for parole in 2026. Andrew Wagner's funeral was held on May 15, 2014 at St. Thomas the Apostle Roman Catholic Church in West Springfield, where his mother said nearly 800 people who loved and cared about Andy were in attendance. And Stephanie's daughter Angelina went to college to study forensic psychology. She wants to help crime victims as well as children when she graduates. She also believes that Andrew Wagner did hurt her mother, and she is looking forward to reuniting with Stephanie when she's released. It seems clear that Stephanie did not kill Andrew in self-defense as she claimed, as the evidence does not support it. Also, she had been known to pull a knife on an ex-boyfriend twice prior to this. That doesn't look good. But I also wonder, had Stephanie not stabbed Andy that night, their relationship likely would have continued, and maybe Stephanie in the future would have been the one who ended up dead. Neither one of them should have been in this relationship to start with, and from the sounds of it, they both should have sought counseling. Stephanie and Andrew were aggressive, violent, and just completely toxic towards one another, which just made this relationship doomed for destruction. Thank you to all the patrons of A Wicked World. Now, there's even more of A Wicked World on Patreon. So check it out at patreon.com/awickedworld or use the Patreon app. You'll have access to exclusive videos each month and more. Any support truly helps to make sure the victims never get forgotten and to highlight the shortcomings of society associated with each case. Do you have a suggestion for a case you'd like to see me cover? If so, send me an email at awickedworldtruecrime@gmail.com.